This is the GARIS Essays, that is 2 3-page opinion pieces on topics such as species dominance, the global state, politics, femtotech, religion, society and education, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de GARIS. This is essay number 18, entitled The Artilect War, by Hugo de GARIS, Professor, former Director of the Artificial Brain Lab, School of Information Science and Technology at Xiamen, that's Xiamen, Xiamen University, Xiamen, the city, Fujian, that's Fujian, Fujian Province, China. Will massively intelligent machines replace human beings as the dominant species in the next few decades? The species dominance issue will dominate our global politics this century, resulting in a major war that will kill billions of people. The issue is whether humanity should build godlike, massively intelligent machines called Artilects, that's artificial intellects, made possible by 21st century technologies and having mental capacities trillions of times above the human level. Society will split into 3 major philosophical groups, all murderously opposed to each other. Artilect enabling technologies. The following 21st century technologies will result in the creation of an artificial brain industry and the creation of rival national brain building institutions and projects, equivalent to NASA and the European Space Agency for space travel. Information storage and femtosecond switching. Gordon Moore, co-founder of the microprocessor company Intel, noticed in 1965 that the number of transistors on an integrated circuit, that is a chip, was doubling every year or two. This trend has continued for nearly 50 years and is expected to remain valid for another 15 years or so until transistors reach atomic size. Extrapolating Moore's law down to storing 1 bit of information on a single atom by about 2020, a handheld object will be able to store a trillion bits of information. Such a device is called an Avogadro machine. An Avogadro machine could flip the state of a single atom from 0 to 1 in a femtosecond, that's 10 to the minus 15 of a second, a total processing speed of about 10 to power 40 bits per second. Reversible computing. If computing technology continues to use its traditional irreversible computational style, the heat generated in atomic scale circuits will be so great they will explode. A reversible information preserving computing style will be needed, and this is usually called reversible computing. This would not generate heat, allowing 3D, three-dimensional computing, and would have no limit to their size. As a result, Artilects could become the size of asteroids, kilometers across, with vast computing capacities. Nanotechnology. Nanotechnology, that is molecular scale engineering, will allow Avogadro machines to be built. Nanotech is the enabling technology for Artilect building. Artificial embryology. One of the greatest challenges of 21st century biology is to understand development, that is, the embryogenic process in which a fertilized single cell grows into an animal comprising 100 trillion cells. Once this process is well understood, technology will be able to create an artificial embryology process to manufacture products. This embryofacture will be used to build complex 3D artilects. Evolutionary engineering. The complexities of the Artilect building will be so great. After all, the human brain has a quadrillion, that's 10 to the power 15. That's 1,000 trillion. Synapses between neurons in the brain. That an evolutionary engineering approach will be needed that applies a genetic algorithm approach to engineering products. Artilects will be built using this technique. Topological quantum computing. Quantum computing could become exponentially more powerful than classical computing. It can compute 2 to the power n things at a time. compared to classical computing's one thing at a time, where n is the number of quantum bits or qubits in the register of the quantum computer. Topological quantum computers store and manipulate the qubits in topological quantum fields and are thus robust against noise. Topological quantum computers will soon make quantum computers practical. Artilects will be such devices. And then, it's not exactly a footnote, but it's like a note, but in large font. If the Artilect can be made intelligent using neuroscience principles, it could become truly godlike, massively intelligent, and immortal. So that's a quote blown up from the text, I guess. Nanotechnology's impact on brain science. Today's most powerful supercomputers have reached the estimated bit processing rate of the human brain. That is about 10 to the power 16 bits per second. But they are far from being intelligent by human standards. What is needed to make them humanly intelligent is knowledge from the neurosciences about how the human brain uses its brain circuits to perform intelligent tasks. Nanotechnology will furnish neuroscience with powerful new tools to discover how the brain works. This knowledge will be quickly incorporated into the building of Artilects. Incredible mental capacities. We know that the estimated bit processing rate of the human brain is approximately 10 to the power 16 bit flips per second. This figure is derived from the fact that the human brain has about 100 billion neurons, that's 10 to the 11, with each neuron connecting with roughly 10,000 other neurons, that's 10 to the 4. This amounts to a quadrillion synapses, each signaling at a maximum rate of about 10 bits per second. Thus, the human bit processing rate is 10 to the power 11 plus 4 plus 1 equals 10 to the power 16 bits per second. As mentioned previously, a handheld Artilect could flip at 10 to the power 40 bits per second. An asteroid-sized Artilect could flip at 10 to the power 52 bits a second. Thus, the raw bit processing rate of the Artilect could be a trillion, so that's 10 to the power 36 times greater than the human brain. If the Artilect can be made intelligent using neuroscience principles, it could become truly godlike, massively intelligent and immortal. The species dominance debate. The species dominance debate has already started, at least in English-speaking countries. The fundamental question is whether humanity should build Artilects. Should humanity build Artilects? This fundamental question dominate this century. 4 words. This issue will dominate our global politics this century and may lead to a major war killing billions of people. As artificial brain-based products, for example, generally useful household robots, become smarter every year, people will be asking questions such as, should humanity place an upper limit on robot and artificial brain intelligence? Can the rise of artificial intelligence be stopped? What are the consequences for human survival if we become the number 2 species? The question, should humanity build godlike massive intelligent Artilects, is the most important of the 21st century and will dominate our century's global politics. It's the equivalent of who should own capital, which dominated 19th and 20th century global politics and led to the rise of the capitalist-communist dichotomy and the Cold War. As the species dominance debate begins to heat up, humanity will split into 3 major philosophical groups. The cosmists, based on the word cosmos, will be in favour of building Artilects. The Terrans, based on the word terra, T-R-R-A, meaning earth, will oppose building Artilects, and the Cyborgists, part machine, part human, will want to become Artilects themselves by adding artilectural components to their own human brains. The dispute between the Terrans and the Cosmos/Cyborgists will be so bitter that a major war is almost inevitable in the second half of this century. The Cosmos perspective. Human beings live a puny 80 years in a universe billions of years old that contains a trillion stars. The cosmos is the big picture. Cosmos want Artilects to become a part of that picture, understanding it, travelling through it, and manipulating it, hence the name of the ideology, cosmism. the preoccupations of human beings seem pathetic in comparison. Scientific religion. Most cosmists are not religious, viewing traditional religions as superstitions invented thousands of years ago before the rise of science. But as humans, they feel the pangs of religious impulse. Such impulses could be satisfied by cosmism, a scientist's religion, due to its awe, AWE, its grandeur, its capacity to energize, and its vision. Building Artilect gods. The primary aim of the cosmists will be to build Artilects. It will be a kind of religion to them, the next step up the evolutionary ladder, the destiny of the human species to serve as the stepping stone to the creation of a higher form of being. In building Artilects, the cosmists will feel they will be building gods. Human striving cannot be stopped. It's human nature to be curious, to strive. Such tendencies are built into our genes. Building godlike Artilects will be inevitable because we humans will choose to do it. It would run counter to human nature not to do it. Economic momentum. Once the artificial brain and intelligent robot industries become the world's largest, worth trillions of dollars per year, it will be very difficult to stop their growth. The economic momentum will be enormous. Military momentum. The military momentum will be even greater. In the time frame we're talking about, China will overtake the US as the century's dominant power. Since China is still a brutal one-party dictatorship that has killed more people than the regimes of Stalin or Hitler, it is despised by the US, so political rivalries will only heat up. Each Ministry of Defense cannot afford to allow the other to get ahead of it in areas such as intelligent soldier robot design. Hence, cosmism will be an entrenched philosophy in the respective defense departments. Even if American and Chinese citizens become alarmed by the closure of the IQ gap between human intelligence and home robot intelligence over the next few decades, their respective governments will not listen to their cries for reasons of national defense. Views of the Terrans. Preserve the human species. The major argument of the Terrans is that the Artilects, once they become hugely superior to human beings, may begin to see us as grossly inferior pests and decide to wipe us out. As Artilects, this would be easy for them. The Terrans would prefer to kill off a few million cosmos/cyborgs for the sake of the survival of billions of human beings. Recent wars were about the survival of countries. An Artilect war would be about the survival of the human species. Since the size of the stake is so much higher, so also will be the passion level in the species dominance debate. Fear of difference. Terrans will be horrified at the idea of seeing their children becoming Artilects and thus becoming utterly alien to them. They will reject the idea viscerally and feel the potential superiority of the Artilects. They will organize to prevent the rise of the Artilects and Cyborgs and will oppose the cosmists ideologically, politically, and eventually militarily. Rejection of the Cyborgists. The Terrans will also be opposed to the Cyborgists because, to a Terran, there's little difference between an advanced cyborg and an Artilect. Both are Artilect-like, given the gargantuan bit processing rate of nanotech matter that can be added to the brains of human beings. The Terrans will lump the Cyborgists into the cosmist camp, ideologically speaking. Unpredictable complexity. Given the likelihood that Artilects will be built using evolutionary engineering, the behavior of Artilects will be so complex as to be unpredictable and therefore potentially threatening to human beings. One of the key words in the species dominance debate is risk. Terran global politicians need to hope for the best, for example, that the Artilects will leave the planet in search of bigger things and ignore puny humans, yet prepare for the worst, that is, exterminating millions of cosmos/cyborgists for the sake of the survival of billions of human beings. Cosmist inconsideration. The Terrans will argue that the cosmos/cyborgists are supremely selfish, since by building Artilects, or making themselves Artilects, not only will they put the lives of the cosmists at risk if the Artilects turn against them, but also the lives of the Terrans. So to prevent such a risk, the Terrans will, when push really comes to shove, decide to wipe out the cosmists/cyborgists for the greater good of the survival of the human species. First strike time window to react against the cosmists/cyborgists. The Terrans will be conscious that they cannot wait too long, because if they do, the cyborgs and the Artilects will have already come into being. The Terrans will then run the risk of being exterminated by the Artilects/cyborgs, so the Terrans will be forced into a first strike strategy. They will have to kill off the cosmists and cyborgists before it's too late. If not, the Artilects and cyborgs will have become too intelligent, too powerful in any human-machine confrontation, and will easily defeat the humans. But the cosmists/cyborgists will be reading the Terran arguments and preparing for an Artilect War against the Terrans using latter 21st century weaponry. Aims of the cyborgists: become Artilect gods themselves. The primary aim of the cyborgists is to become Artilects themselves by adding artilectual components to their own human brains, converting themselves bit by bit into cyborgs and eventually into Artilects. Instead of watching Artilects become increasingly intelligent as observers, cyborgists want that experience for themselves. They want to become gods themselves. Avoid the Cosmos-Terran clash. Some cyborgists argue that by having human beings become Artilects themselves, the dichotomy between the cosmists and the Terrans can be avoided, because all human beings would become Artilects. The Terrans, of course, will reject the cyborgists and lump them with the cosmists and Artilects. In reality, the growing presence of cyborgs in daily life will only hasten the alarm and alienation of the Terrans and bring their first strike closer. How the Artilect War heats up. Nanotech molecular-sized robots will revolutionize neuroscience because they will provide a powerful new tool to understand how the brain works. An entire human brain could be simulated in vast nanotech computers and investigated in hardware. Neuroscience would finally be in a position to explain how brains make human beings intelligent. That knowledge would be implemented in the Artilects. In time, neuroscience and neuroengineering will interact so closely that they will become one, in the same way as theoretical and experimental physics are two aspects of the same subject. Neuroscientists will be able to test their theories on artificial brain models, thus rapidly increasing the level of understanding of how intelligence arises and how it is embodied. With a much higher level of artificial intelligence based on knowledge of the human brain, artificial brains and artificial brain-based home robots will become a lot more intelligent and hence more useful as domestic appliances. A vast industry of artificial brain-based products will be created, becoming the world's largest, worth trillions of dollars per year. Once neuroscientists and brain builders understand how human intelligence is created, new theories about the nature of intelligence will be created by theoretical neuroscientists, and intelligence theory, IT, will be created, and human intelligence will be just one data point in the space of possible intelligences. Intelligence theory should show how it is possible to increase intelligence levels. It will be able to explain why some people are smarter than others, or why humans are smarter than chimps, for example. As a result of the marriage of neuroscience and neuroengineering, the artificial brain-based industries will deliver products that increase their intelligence every year. This trend of growing intelligence will cause people to ask the questions mentioned above. The species dominance debate will spread from the intellectual technocrats to the general public via the media and blockbuster Hollywood movies. As, for example, Transcendence. It's already, ad-libbing here, already underway. Back to the essay. As the IQ gap between home robots and human beings becomes increasingly smaller, the species dominance debate will begin to rage. The three schools of thought will form, and the rhetorical exchange will become less polite and more heated as the IQ gap closes. When people are surrounded by ever-increasingly intelligent home robots and other artificial brain-based products, the general level of alarm will increase to the point of panic. Assassinations of brain builder company CEOs will start, and home robot factories will be arsoned and sabotaged. The cosmists and cyborgists will be forced to strengthen their resolve. The Artilect War will be drawing ever closer. The Terrans will have been organising for a first strike and will have made preparations. They will then take power in a worldwide coup of the global government that is likely to exist by mid-century, and begin exterminating the cosmists and cyborgists in a global purge, exterminating millions of them, or at least that is the Terran plan. The cosmists/cyborgists will be following the arguments of the Terrans very closely and will be preparing equally for a confrontation against the Terrans. They will have their own plans and their own weapons and militaries. If the Terrans strike first, a quick reply will follow from the cosmists/cyborgists, and the Artilect War will have begun. If one extrapolates up the graph of the number of people killed in major wars from the early 19th century, the Napoleonic Wars, to later in the 21st century, the Artilect War, then one predicts that billions of people will be killed using latter 21st century weapons. This gigadeath figure is the characteristic number of deaths in any major latter 21st century war. About 300 million people were killed for political reasons in the 20th century. Who believes in the risk of the Artilect? ? At the end of the talks I give on this topic, I usually invite my audiences to vote on the following question. Do you feel personally that humanity should build Artilects, these godlike, massively intelligent machines, despite the risk that they might decide in a highly advanced form to wipe out humanity? The result is usually around an even cosmos-Terran split. Most people, like me, are highly ambivalent about Artilect building. They are awed by the prospect of what Artilects could become, and horrified at the prospect of a gigadeath Artilect War. And then another quote in large font. The early Artilects could be made human-friendly, but once they start performing evolutionary engineering experiments on part of themselves to vastly increase their mental capacities, there will be no way to ensure the human-friendly outcome. Okay, back to the text. The fact that the Cosmos-Terran split is so even will make the Artilect War all the more divisive and bitter. This divisiveness can be expressed in the form of the following question. Do we build gods, or do we build our potential exterminators? During the past year, I have handed out questionnaires to 4 different groups of 30 to 50 people each on the issue of species dominance. The first one was given to a group of electronic engineers in Melbourne. 60% of them thought that an Artilect War is coming. Even half of the members of the various transhumanist organizations, who usually think that an Artilect War is improbable, think that the rise of Artilects would pose an existential risk to human beings. So the future looks pretty gloomy. Is the Artilect War avoidable? ? If an Artilect War killing billions of people occurs in the mid-late 21st century, then young people alive now will probably be still alive to be part of it, and therefore will probably be killed in it. This is such a depressing prospect that it is understandable that much effort in the transhumanist research community is devoted to trying to make Artilects human-friendly. Some brain builders think that it may be possible to make Artilects so that they remain friendly towards human beings even once they have modified themselves into vastly superior creatures. Personally, I'm extremely skeptical that this is possible. The early Artilects, still a little bit dumber than their human programmers, could be made human-friendly, but once they start performing evolutionary engineering experiments on part of themselves to vastly increase their mental capacities, there will be no way to ensure the human-friendly outcome. It is virtually certain that advanced Artilects will have attitudes towards human beings that will be totally alien to us. Humans will not be able to predict these attitudes, so there would always be a risk that the Artilects could turn out to be very human-unfriendly. Therefore, Terran politicians will not tolerate the construction of superhuman Artilects, and when the IQ gap between humans and machines is about to close, will go to war against the Cosmos/Cyborgs to stop the rise of the Artilect. Another approach to avoiding an Artilect war is to have all humans become cyborgs. If this could be done lockstep, so that everyone advances at the same rate simultaneously, for example, with everyone adding the same intellectual components to their heads at the same time, then the argument of the cyborg is that an Artilect war could be avoided because there would be no Terrans nor Cosmos left to fight it. Would be valid, but it's an entirely unrealistic precondition. In reality, there would be Cyborgian divergence. The cyborgs would advance in many different directions and at different speeds. Many people would remain ardent Terrans, choosing not to modify themselves at all. To the Terrans, there is not much difference between an advanced cyborg and a pure Artilect, given the huge computing capacity of nanotech 1 bit per atom matter. The presence of millions of cyborgs in their midst would only render the Terrans even more paranoid and fearful. The Terrans could not help noticing that the cyborgs and Artilects keep getting smarter every year. So if the Terrans want human beings to remain the dominant species, the Terrans will have to first strike and prepare for it before they become too stupid. There are, however, scenarios where humanity escapes the Artilect war. For example, the Artilects could come into being far faster than anyone had anticipated, so that there is not enough time for human politics to react. Then the Artilects quickly decide that their fate lies far from the Earth and into the cosmos. They simply leave, sparing humanity. This is a possibility, but less likely than the scenario in which it takes decades to figure out how the human brain works in order to put the principles of the functioning of the human brain into artificial brains and reach human intelligence and consciousness levels in machines. Thus, there will be enough time for human politics to unfold. The Terrans will have enough time to prepare for the Artilect war, and so will the Cosmos/Cyborgs to defend themselves against the anticipated first strike of the Terrans. In my view, the most realistic scenario is in fact the worst. I'm very glad to be old now, mid-60s. Well, I'm in weeks about to turn 70, so this was written, 6 years ago. I will probably live for another 20 to 30 years, time enough to see the species dominance debate rage, but not the Artilect war. I will be lucky enough to live between the two major wars, World War II and the Artilect war. I will die peacefully in my bed, but the young generation will not. They will be caught up in the horror of gigadeath and will not survive it. And there's a bit of a bio at the bottom as a footnote. Professor Hugo de GARIS is the technical advisor to a major Hollywood film studio that is currently making a movie on the themes of this article. His essays and international media videos are at, and here's the URL, profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. I got ad-libbing now.